All right, good evening. It's 5:30 on Wednesday, November 18th. So it's time for the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners meeting. We want to welcome everyone who's joining us either at the courthouse or online. I just want to pass on a bit of information regarding how we run our meetings on Zoom in this time of social distancing. If visual aids are used during the meeting, the presenter will share the screen with the call. Participants will not be able to view them without a computer, smartphone, or tablet. All participants will be entered into the meeting with their audio muted, meaning the commission and the public will not be able to hear you. Presenters will be unmuted when their agenda item comes up. We ask that all of our online presenters use good conference call etiquette and mute their line when not speaking. And please introduce yourself each time you speak. If you have a public comment on the agenda item or under regular public comment, please use the raise your hand function on Zoom. Staff will call on you and unmute you. We ask that speakers give their name and address for the minutes. The county reserves the right to shut off the microphone and remove any speaker from the meeting if they are vulgar, rude, or inappropriate. The chat function has been disabled and a recording of this meeting will be available on our website after each meeting. With that, a quick rundown of our meeting this evening. Well, I had it handy. We have 6 consent agenda items, 5 regular agenda items. Then we'll do appointments, general public comment, and commissioner and administrator miscellaneous. With that, commissioners, do we have any item that's on the consent agenda that you would like to have removed for further discussion?
I do not.
Not for me.
I don't either. I'll check with our members of our public, either online or in the courthouse. Sarah, is there anyone there at the courthouse who would like to have a consent agenda item removed?
We don't have anyone.
Thank you. Jill, is there anybody online?
No,
This is Daviana. I'm standing in for Jill. No, there's nobody.
Thanks, Daviana. It's great to have you. All right, with that, I would take a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 from the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
second.
Moved and seconded, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 3-0. We'll move on to our regular agenda items, and the first one is to receive a KDOT update on the South Lawrence Traffic Way and the draft supplemental environmental impact statement. Sarah, who are our guests?
Yeah, well, Chad is gonna kick us off, and so we'll move him into the room. And I'm sorry, we're a little, I think we've moved a few more people in that we did not need to move in, so give us just a minute here. And Daviana and Robin, if you're moving people in, just move people in for the first item, please, not for the later items.
And it's quite a list, Sarah.
I know, but we're so just give us a minute here to kind of
Sure.
get it figured out.
While we're doing that, I can maybe introduce the item. We've got KDOT here tonight to give us an update on the South Lawrence Traffic Way. And we have several representatives from KDOT and also HNTB, who is their consultant on the project. And I think Brian Keyrath was listed as the one who's going to kick it off. So Brian, I think you're on, and if you could unmute. There you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure the people from HNTB were in the room and ready to,
Okay.
They're presenting with me, so.
Good.
Do we have everyone?
I believe I have everybody on the list. I see a Robin author that has their hand raised. I don't know if that's part of this group. I don't see them on the list provided.
Yes, that Robin Arthur is on the list too.
Yeah, I think Robin Arthur will be sharing her screen for the presentation, I believe. Correct, Greg?
Okay, yeah, she wasn't on our list, so we thank you for letting us know.
Okay. Robin, will you be sharing your screen?
Yes, I'd like to. Do
Okay.
I have permission to do so?
Yes, you should, if you're a panelist, you have permission to share your screen.
Okay, great. I will get on that while Brian gives us the overview.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and get started. My name's Brian Kirath with the Kansas Department of Transportation. I am the project manager for the Southern Lawrence Trafficway study. We're currently getting ready to enter our third year of the SEIS study, which is the Supplemental Environmental Impact Study. We've been here a couple times now to kind of give you guys updates as we go through this process. And, you know, right now we're about to give you kind of our final update. As you recall, we had kind of gave you in previous meetings some of the alternatives we were looking at. And at this point, we're kind of ready to move into our preferred alternative that we've selected. And coming up, we'll kind of be having our public hearing on that. So we just kind of want to update you guys on how we selected our preferred alternative and what that looks like. Robin, if you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah, sorry.
So today we'll walk you through our screening process that we went through those reasonable alternatives with and the selection we made. And then we'll kind of give an update on the Wakarusa interchange and some of the alternatives we looked at there and our plan moving forward at that interchange. And then we'll walk you through our public hearing we had a couple of months back and kind of how that went, and then kind of the next steps as we wrap up this study and what that'll look like. So now I'm going to hand it over to Greg Weatherd with H&TB. He's our consultant partner and the project manager for the study with H&TB.
Thanks, Brian. It is indeed a pleasure to be back with the county again to give you an update on the South Lawrence Trafficway SEIS. So what you see here on the screen right now is just a reminder of where we've been and where we're at right now. As you recall, as we have met with you in the past, we initially started with the initial alternatives and then moved, once we identified those initial alternatives, moved into alignment and engineering refinements, looking at those 5 initial alternatives, and then screen that down to 3 reasonable alternatives, which were the no build, the non-tolled freeway, and the tolled expressway. And just as a reminder, the no build is one that we're required to look at by federal regulation, even if it's one that we wouldn't move forward with as a comparison to the other build alternatives that we are considering. So since we last met, we've been incorporating engineering refinements into the non-tolled freeway and the tolled expressway. And we've been looking at specific pieces of the corridor, specifically the K10 I-70 Farmers Turnpike interchange and the Wakarusa interchange, which I'll discuss later, as Brian indicated. With further development, we've screened the alternatives down to one identified preferred alternative. Before we take a look at that, one of the things that I want to make sure you also understand is that as part of our evaluation process, you know, we compared the alternatives against each other using the purpose and need criteria, which included reduction of congestion, enhancing safety, promoting a multimodal transportation system, and supporting local and regional growth. We also compared them based on engineering criteria as well as environmental criteria, and then we used quantifiable data wherever it was available. Next slide, Robin. So what you see here before you is alternative 3, which is the alternative that KDOT and FHWA ultimately selected based on the criteria that we used to compare up at the north end with the K10 I-70 Farmers Turnpike interchange. Several things about this interchange. One, this interchange provides all access to and from I-70, K10, and the Farmers Turnpike at a single interchange. So you can see that here that between K10, I-70, You have two direct connection ramps that allow you to go in all directions between I-70 and K10. And then you have two ramps that continue on through the interchange that provides connectivity between K10 and Farmers Turnpike. So with this alternative, all the same access that exists today would be provided. And that access would be improved by the fact that the aggregate intersections that are out there today for the K10 ramps would be eliminated, and free-flowing movements would be provided for all directions. One of the things that makes this possible is the conversion of the turnpike to an all-electronic tolling facility, which essentially means that there will be no more cash collections on the turnpike, and at this interchange specifically, you'll be able to drive through without stopping to pick up a ticket. Either it will monitor you with your K-tag, or be able to know who drove through based on video detection of license plates if you don't happen to have K-tag. The intersection with the South Lawrence Trafficway and Farmers Turnpike will remain, as I indicated with this, but with some improvements. You might recall from the other alternatives that we considered, both of which included a new interchange at the Lecompton Road. With one of them, we had identified improvements to US 40 because we anticipated diversion of traffic to US 40. With this alternative here, we do not anticipate any diversion of traffic since we're providing all of the same access at this location as it currently does. And therefore, there are no improvements that are identified on US 40 as it relates to the South Lawrence Trafficway, SEIS, and the improvements that are associated with this interchange. Next slide. Yes, thanks, Robin. In terms of the analysis that led us to this identification of alternative 3 as the preferred alternative, what we found is that all three alternatives provided similar traffic operations and congestion relief. Alternative 1 and 2, which again diverted some of the traffic over to Lecompton Road to provide access between Farmers Turnpike and I-70. And then with this one with all access, safety operations are essentially the same. But where we saw the differences between the three that led to the identification of alternative 3 as the preferred alternative, one was the public feedback that we received throughout the process from the advisory group, from the focus groups that we held back in November and December of last year, public meetings that we've conducted, the elected officials briefings that we've also conducted over the past 6 months. Through all of that process, alternative 3 has overwhelmingly been preferred by the folks that we have talked to. Alternatives 1 and 2 also had some major environmental impacts at the Compton Road area, which included potential impacts to historic properties, a potential Mead's milkweed habitat, and farmland. Alternative 3 avoided these impacts because of everything being at this one location. Because it is contained at a single site and more compact, it led also to the smallest overall need for right-of-way to be acquired from private landowners. The safety evaluation that was performed for the alternatives also suggested that alternative 3 would provide the best safety performance, primarily because of the other two alternatives maintained at-grade intersections at the ramp terminals with Lecompton Road, whereas I indicated with alternative 3, we were able to eliminate the at-grade intersections and provide direct connections, free flow movements in all directions. Probably the one negative that is associated with alternative 3 is the fact that it is the highest cost alternative. It's 20% more cost than alternative 1 and 5% more cost than alt 2. When KDOT and FHWA and the project team considered all of the factors that I've identified here and others, it made alternative 3 the clear choice among the screening group and the reason for its identification. So at this point, I'd like to just take a quick pause and just see if there are any of the commissioners that have any questions or comments about the identification of alternative 3 as the preferred interchange configuration.
Commissioners, any questions?
None for me.
I think you can go ahead, Greg.
Okay, next slide then, Robin, thank you. So now what I'd like to do is move into a discussion really more as it relates to the corridor and the identification process there of the preferred alternative. What you see here on the screen is the non-tolled alternative add capacity freeway, which is the alternative that KDOT and FHWA identified as their preferred alternative. This alternative would reconstruct and expand K10 to be a 4-lane freeway. You can visualize this as being like the east leg, as we've discussed previously, of SLT that was opened in 2016. The improvements would pick up at US 59, and the 4-lane freeway would be continued all the way to I-70, where it would connect with a new system-to-system interchange at I-70, which we just discussed, alternative 3. So again, this alternative incorporates alternative 3. It also eliminates the existing intersections with a new grade separated interchange at Wakarusa, which provides new K10 bridges over Wakarusa and interchange ramps that would provide access to and from K10 and Wakarusa. There are also improvements to the existing interchanges at US 59 and Clinton Parkway. Some ramp configuration, and more specifically at Clinton Parkway, realignment of the main line to flatten the curve there to bring it in line with the current standards for freeway. There will be minor improvements to the existing interchanges at Bob Billings Parkway and 6th Street, generally to just tie those existing ramps into the 4-lane facility when it's completed. Next slide, Robin. What you see here is a graphical representation of the typical lane configuration of what this 4-lane freeway section would look like. Again, it's like what you see today on the east leg of SLT. You'll have 2 lanes in each direction with a grass median between the eastbound and westbound traffic. And then the grass median could be replaced in the future, excuse me, with additional lanes in each direction of travel if and when traffic warrants the expansion of the highway to a 6-lane facility. Next slide. So again, I indicated that our evaluation between the non-tolled and the tolled alternatives identified the non-tolled as a preferred alternative. What we did find, though, is that between both of them, again, the operations and the safety were essentially the same. The environmental impacts and the right-of-way impacts, again, were also similar between the 2 build alternatives. The footprints were generally the same, not that far apart, but where they did differ is, one, our analysis predicted low demand for the express toll lane, especially in the early years of implementation. There, at least in the beginning, there's just not enough traffic demand with the typical section that was identified that we didn't see a demand for traffic to want to go into and pay for the express lane because there was plenty of capacity in the free lane that was provided. We also heard concerns from the public with the tolled alternative, particularly with the 1 general purpose lane and 1 express toll lane in the beginning, and the inability to pass slower moving vehicles if there was somebody in front of you that was traveling at a slower speed. And the public input was in favor of the non-tolled solution for this reason, among others. Also, the express toll lane solution requires additional infrastructure, which results in higher costs than the non-tolled alternative for the gantries that go into place and other things. And as a result of this, we found that because of the predicted low utilization of the express toll lane, the additional costs and required maintenance would not be offset by the revenue generated by the ETL. So with that, KDOT and FHWA determined that the non-tolled alternative was the preferred alternative to move forward with. So with that, I'm going to again pause and give the commissioners an opportunity in case you have any questions or comments about the identification of the non-tolled alternative.
Commissioners, any questions?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Nope.
I just have a quick question, Greg. You said flatten out the curve.
Yes.
Can you describe, maybe give us a few more details on that?
Well, okay, the curve, that the existing curve that's out there today on the main line, as you drive into, yes, thanks, Robin, as you drive into and out of the Clinton Parkway area. So as you come north, you can see that you've got generally a north-south alignment on K10 that then turns 90 degrees to go generally east-west. That curve there is too sharp for freeway standards that we're designing to now that we are converting the facility when it goes to 4 lanes to freeway. So that curve will be flattened, and essentially there's a little bit of a realignment of the bearing between Clinton Parkway and Bob Billings that will require some right-of-way acquisition to the west. And then the curve will be flattened, which will basically pull it towards the northeast, towards the area there northeast of the interchange, to provide just for a flatter, more desirable flow for traffic as they go through that curve there.
Thanks. I was trying to figure out how you're going to do it without acquiring right away. So that now makes a little more sense now that you
Yeah, well, it took some creative geometry, like I said, to change the bearing going to the north, which required some right-of-way to the west. There will be some right-of-way required in the northeast. In fact, there is one home that we've identified that would need to be acquired, which is the furthest south of the Breithopt properties there. But that's the only buildings that we impact. Otherwise, we're able to stay away from the other buildings.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, now we'd like to give you a brief update on the Wakarusa interchange alternatives and where the team is right now and what we're moving forward with as the identified configuration here. As you recall, initially the study team, as we moved into the SEIS, continued with the evaluation of the offset diamond configuration that had emerged from the concept study, which relocated the interchange approximately about 1.25 miles to the southeast, and then required an extension of Wakarusa to the south and east to tie into the relocated interchange. Provisions were made for accommodating the master plan for the youth sports complex to provide access into the YSC, as well as to provide access for the future extension of Wakarusa across the river to County Road 458. However, based on feedback from local partners, stakeholders, and the public regarding out-of-direction travel and impact to the open farmland, KDOT began looking at alternatives to provide an interchange at the current intersection where K10, Wakarusa, and 27th Street intersect. So KDOT began working with the City of Lawrence and Douglas County to evaluate alternatives. And this evening, we're prepared to share with you the identified preferred alternative that's come out of that evaluation process. So what you see here is the alternative that has emerged from that evaluation, which included the offset diamond, what you see here, what we refer to as a folded diamond. And then we also had one other one that was being considered, which was a hybrid diamond that included ramps that connected to 27th Street and Wakarusa in the westbound direction. But here we have the folded diamond that provides 2 sets of ramps in the northeast and southwest quadrants of the intersection. So you can see in the westbound direction, you have a loop ramp that provides for exiting traffic to go to Wakarusa, and then another ramp that provides for people entering via a roundabout on Wakarusa to go west. And then in the eastbound direction, the same, you have a loop ramp that allows you to exit to an extension of Wakarusa Drive, and then a ramp that allows you to enter K10 going eastbound. You can see Wakarusa extending to these ramps with a roundabout at the intersection. You see the stub out to the south that provides for the extension of Wakarusa across the river in coordination with the project that the county has identified to connect in with County Road 458. And there will also be provisions made here for connecting to a future intersection that provides access into the youth sports complex at the roundabout. Several features of this interchange that led to its being identified as a preferred alternative. One, it connects the ramps directly to Wakarusa Drive, meeting driver expectations. Drivers expect to be able to enter and exit from the same street. It provides for more conventional access pattern to from K10 and Wakarusa Drive, which includes separating the local and ramp traffic, which maintains KDOT's best access management practices. The roundabouts that have been identified offer a better and lower cost for operations and maintenance through the life of the improvements. It provides the best experience and safety for pedestrians and bike enthusiasts. The pedestrians and bicyclists will continue to enter onto Wakarusa north of where 27th Street intersects. They would cross at that intersection, a lower speed intersection on a local street, cross under the bridges that go over Wakarusa, so there will be no conflicts between the pedestrians, bicyclists, and the K10 traffic, and then down to the new intersection that goes into Spiker Road and 27th Street out to the facilities to the west. This option was also favored by the local stakeholders and was the preferred alternative for the city of Lawrence. One slight negative is the impact to the core property in the northeast quadrant, but the impact is minor, and the benefits that I've already identified offset that one impact that we are coordinating with the core and will be part of the draft SEIS report, the impact that we have to that property. With that, again, I will pause and allow the commissioners an opportunity to, again, ask any questions, provide any thoughts that you might have.
I don't have any questions, commissioners.
I don't have any.
Carry on, Greg.
Okay, with that, I'm going to hand the baton off to Steve Ballman, who's going to give you an update on the interim safety improvement projects that have been in the works.
Okay, I'm Steve Ballman. I'm the KDOT Metro Area Engineer in Topeka, responsible for this area. About a couple of years ago, we went ahead and committed to doing a number of interim safety improvement projects in this corridor to try to tide us over, improve safety until this project actually comes to fruition. Of those projects, the northernmost improvements that we committed to were making some modifications at the intersections of the Farmers Turnpike, the KTA and K10. We did go ahead and make some signing changes, applied a speed limit change approaching the KTA interchange, and also did a lighting project that added street lighting at the intersection of Farmers Turnpike and K10. We had identified that as a good safety improvement and accomplished that last year. Additional safety improvements we committed to were making modifications at 27th Wakarusa and K10, some very minor but significant safety improvements by changing the operation of the 27th Wakarusa intersection as relates to K10. And you saw that work occurring this summer, and in fact, it was just completed here recently. Robin, if you could click forward one. And you also saw us do an overlay through the K10 corridor, the 2-lane portion, as we were also making those 27th and Wakarusa intersection improvements. All of that work is essentially complete. We have some minor signing additions that we made late in the game that won't be complete until likely sometime in January. But for all intents and purposes, the rest of that work is complete. One of the other items we committed to was providing a additional intelligent transportation system improvements, a queue detection warning system for the 27th and Wakarusa approaches on K10. We deployed a simple temporary system earlier this year, finally got it operational through this past winter, but had to actually pull it down due to vandalism issues with the equipment that occurred right after we went into that initial COVID-19 lockdown. So, you know, we felt we didn't have to have that out there because traffic volumes had been reduced through the summer. Now that it's increasing, the other piece that we committed to do, which is a permanent system, is being worked on right now. Now, we originally intended it to be under construction and actually nearing completion sometime this winter, but due to supply chain issues with COVID-19, we weren't able to actually get that project off and running until here very recently. You'll probably have seen some activity on K10 as they're pouring foundations and putting some other infrastructure in place to put up permanent message boards to provide that queue detection warning system. And along with that will come the one last piece, which is signal actuated flashing beacons on the approaches to 27th and Wakarusa on K10. Those are the items we've completed to date. You should see the message boards and the queue detection warning system operational sometime this coming spring. Did anybody have any questions regarding the interim improvements? And Robin, if you could click forward one more picture, we got a really good aerial drone photograph of 27th and Wakarusa as we were completing the pavement marking work here recently.
Dave, this is Commissioner DeRusso. I just wanted to take a minute
Yes.
and thank you for the improvements you did out around the Farmers Turnpike with the lighting and the rumble strips. So
Well,
it's
and some of that thanks needs to go to Chad and Keith Browning. They ended up doing a little bit of the work themselves, even before we were able to react and put up our minor other improvements. We appreciated them being willing to do that. I think the rumble strips and the lighting probably will do wonders for that intersection, particularly at night. I mean, that's really where we saw some real kind of wicked accidents occurring.
Yeah, so I knew I'd talked to Keith about it a couple years ago, and he was talking to you about it, and I will have to extend my thanks to he and Chad, because I didn't know that they were partially responsible for helping us get that done. So thank you. They
were, and we appreciated their help because it was kind of a, you could say it's kind of a shared responsibility right there at that intersection. They stood up, they ended up putting in an additional stop sign in for us. And then we were able to piggyback on that with our signing changes approaching the intersection.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, I'm trying to figure out how to get myself off mute, turn on my camera, and just flip the slides. Multitasking. So I'm Robin Arthur, and supporting KDOT in the communications and public outreach for the project. And as you're probably aware, we've had several, we've had already 3 public meetings on this project, or 2 public meetings so far on the project. The last one we held in May, and it ended up being a virtual meeting. So it was open from May 14th to June 4th. And we provided notices out through email. We used our advisory group to to disseminate information. There was an article in the paper. We presented at the city council and commission meetings beforehand, talking about what we would be sharing, and then information was posted online. And so we had 202 participants sign into that meeting and received 115 comments in that period in May. And so related to our other meetings that we've had to date, that's in line with the other public meetings that we've had. Our first one that we held in 2018, we had 249 people, and then 142 in October of 2019. And so our virtual meeting had 202, and our comments have gone up with that. And I think, part of that could have been because it was a virtual opportunity and we kept asking for feedback there, and people didn't have the opportunity to talk with project team members to get their questions answered. So they made sure they left a comment, but we had good feedback there in terms of engagement. And we did a survey following the meeting, and 93% of people that participated in that meeting said that they'd participated in another virtual meeting, which is really good because we're probably going to have another virtual meeting and to do the public hearing here in January, the January timeframe, to get comments on the supplemental environmental impact statement document. Once that is released, that'll be available for the public to review. We'll put that at public locations. It'll also be available on the website. So it'll be in library, city and county offices, and people will have the opportunity to review the document and provide comments. We will have the a option for people to review the document online and review the materials associated with that public hearing, similar to what we did in May. To where it's open for a couple weeks at a time. And then we will host an actual virtual meeting event where people can participate in a 2-hour time frame where they come and provide their comments to our panel online. We will also do an open and a public in-person meeting, so that people have the opportunity to, if they can't handle an online meeting, they can come in person. But we will make sure that we're doing that in a safe way where people make appointments to attend, and we're being cognizant of the regulations for gatherings and things like that, particularly if we're doing this in January. So that's kind of our approach for the public hearing, to allow everyone to have opportunity to comment on the document and provide feedback. And that comment period will be open for 45 days once it's distributed. And so we'll be doing a big public push to let people know that it's available and that they can comment on the information. And we'll summarize that in a similar fashion to how we've summarized the other information in a presentation format for that'll be posted online. And then this is our last presentation to the city and county commissions. This time to kind of present the preferred alternatives. So we'll be pushing that information out and hoping that you all will help get that information out to the public, to your friends, to your family, so that they can have the opportunity to provide input into the final documents. So, and there I'd like to we'll kind of wrap up. And if there's any questions for the other speakers or for me on the public engagement process, let us know.
Commissioners, you have any comments or questions?
I don't have anything.
I don't have any questions. Just a quick comment to say it's really impressive to see the evolution of this public process and the alternatives and the deep hard thinking that's gone on, not just from the engineers but from the public at large. It's an impressive process, and I think it really was shaped by the citizens of Douglas County who paid a lot of attention. And I'm really appreciative of KDOT's work on this and the sensitivity to how folks want these big, fast roads to go through their communities safely and somewhat affordably, but mostly in a way that makes sense to the community. So just thanks so much for the process, and we'll see what the next steps are.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think the public did have a good input into this process, and we're very engaged throughout. So it's been a pleasure to work on. Well,
Yeah, I
if
don't have
there's, yeah, if
question.
there's no other questions or comments, then I think we can say thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to present to you and share information. And if you all have any questions, please call us. Let Chad know. He can get in touch with us. And we're here to answer questions or, give any follow-up information. So thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight and providing such a detailed report. It's really helpful. And it's great to see the public engagement and your willingness to engage with the public. Well, with that, we'll thank them for coming and we'll move on to our next item, which is an administration item, which is the resolution of number 20-035, authorizing issuance, sale, and delivery of general obligation sales tax improvement bonds, Series 2020-A, regarding the behavioral health campus. And I would guess, Sarah, that we're going to do item 2 and 3 together. Would that be correct? Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner. Actually, you'll have two separate actions on each item, and we'll need to walk you through both the sale of the bonds. So I think, unless Dave has any different thoughts as he gets moved over into here, I think we can kind of, my thought was we would talk about our bond rating and the exciting news about our elevated bond rating. And then, because that impacts both pieces, and then talk about the 2020A bonds, which are what we would call the new money associated with the behavioral health campus. And then 2020B is associated with the forward refunding. So, and joining me in this presentation today is going to be Dave McGilvery and Ben Hart from Baker Tilly, our financial advisors, and Garth Herman, who with Gilmore and Bell as our bond counsel on this item. I'm gonna, Dave, I thought I'd start off and talk a little bit about the AAA rating, and then you could provide some comments on that, and then we could kind of go from there. Commissioners, in 2013, when we had our last bond sale, we went through a rating process with Moody's, and we're upgraded from AA2 to AA1. I think it was in 13 or 17, Dave might remember.
17.
17. And
Yeah.
yeah. And so, and then, and I'm going to share my screen with a chart that we prepared in preparation for that conversation. Really, I want the commissioners to see what Moody's saw. And I know this is kind of big, so I can make it a little smaller. But this shows our fund balances and the general fund, equipment reserve, the capital improvement fund, and the health insurance reserves, and how it relates to our total budget. In addition, we included information related to the reserves that are currently sitting in the sales tax fund, which is where we pay for debt financing, that were previously in the CIP sales tax fund. We combined those funds back in 2016. And really, this puts us at a really strong advantage for our fund balance and cash position. And then, Ben reached out to, Moody's to get a little bit more information about what AAA means and what it means to us and to taxpayers. And AAA with Moody's is the highest possible rating that an entity can receive. For an investor, it indicates that they have the highest credit-worthy investment an investor can make. At Moody's, there are 106 counties in the entire United States that have AAA ratings. So considering that there are over 3,100 counties in the United States, this puts Douglas County in the top 3% of counties nationwide in terms of having this rating. Ken with Moody's indicated that he felt that really strongly that this was some information. I'm going to share this screen in terms of some things he thought were really helpful to the rating committee when they were reviewing this. And what I particularly enjoyed about this piece is it is a comparison to the other two AAA counties in Kansas, Sedgwick County and Johnson County. And it compares us, Douglas County, with our fund balance and cash balance as a percent of revenue, because we really are a substantially smaller organizations than those two counties, but it does really indicate our position in terms of our financial stewardship and the ability we have to weather any changes that are moving forward into our financial situation. And I think if I can, I don't know how to move my screen ahead. There we go. So these, I think these charts indicate our fund balance and cash position, and also our net direct debt and how it relates not only to those two counties, but our AAA medium counties. And I don't know, Dave or Ben, if there's anything you would add to this analysis.
Well, I think I would just add, point again to the net direct debt. You know, it's about half as a percent. So half as a percent of the other two AAA rated counties. And, you know, between Ben and myself, you know, we work with the other two as well. So, you know, what you've done in terms of both the budget performance, the development of reserves, and extremely low debt burden, you know, is compares very well with the other two AAA counties. And, you know, Sarah, if you have other things to present before I make any other comments.
Just ask commissioners if they have any questions for us on the bond rating before we move on. Okay, if not, Dave, I don't know if you want to say your other comments, and then we can move into the information related to the 2020A bonds.
Well, just, you know, all of this takes a lot of, you know, work by the professional staff, but ultimate decisions of the governing body. So you've well positioned the county. And, you know, what I probably mentioned during the bond part of this, that, you know, all this results in lower interest rates. So, you know, all of that means lower interest rates, lower interest costs, and, you know, less demands on your public revenue sources. So there's, you know, there's some big dividends financially on having, you know, the highest possible credit rating. And we'll have some more specific numbers during the bond part of this. I guess my one other point was, as I was prepping for the call and sort of listening to the previous one, I was going through my comments and there's a whole bunch of really good news for Douglas County tonight. And, you know, getting to AAA, I mean, that's, you know, that's a really big deal. So congratulations on that.
It is a really big deal, Dave and Sarah. It is a really big deal. And I know it feels like Christmas came early for Sarah. She's so excited. Her hard work has really paid off. And I don't know that the public totally understands what this means. And it's really unfortunate because it's a savings for them and also shows the value of responsible government, you know, and really taking care of taxpayer dollars so that when you do need to go out and get credit, it is easy to do. We all understand that in our personal lives. And so it's great to see that Douglas County has done the same. So Sarah, huge credit to you and your entire team there. I know this is a huge celebration. I just really appreciate all the work that you've done to get us to this point. Also, I think I caught Dave saying it was maybe commend elected officials for making good decisions. And so to my other commissioners, congratulations. This is really big. Unless we have other questions, Dave, I think you can move on.
And
Yeah.
Dave, I'd be glad to throw up the bid documents. I have those ready, the bid
Sure.
tab, if that's helpful. So I'll let you get
That'd
moving.
be certain, please.
Sorry, commissioners, I have one too many screen open on my computer. Okay, here we go.
Okay. So we have two transactions, we have two actions on the agenda. The first is for the general obligation, Sarah, that would be the one I would need. For the general obligation sales tax 2020A, for the mental health partial funding of that. And I'll go through the sort of facts here and then comment. So you received 7 bids. The lowest and best bid was from Robert W. Baird out of Milwaukee. They have a rate there on the right-hand side of 1.26%. And then you go up to the highest bidder, Commerce, at 1.45. And Sarah, we're gonna do both of these right now, right? Both, when it's the A's and the B's, or are you gonna?
Yeah, if you want to, we can, yeah.
Yeah, that way, because we have to compare some stuff. The 1.26 for, first you have to keep in mind that this is a tax exempt issue. It's repaid over 20 years. When we started this before the election, and you'll recall when we were chatting at that time, we were cautious about upheaval in and around the election in the fixed income markets. And there wasn't that much, but certainly this is, in all probability, maybe the lowest interest rate the county will see in quite a while, and nobody has seen prior to this in quite a while. So, borrowing for 20 years and getting 1.26, that's a very low rate. And I just want to keep that one and then maybe go to the next bid tab because I want to compare some things. If I may.
There we go. Can you see it?
All right, this is a refunding, and it's approximately the same size, 10,000,007. Now, this is a taxable municipal bond, and the difference is investors here, they have to pay federal and state income taxes on interest they earn. And usually in most all markets, taxable interest rates for municipal government, which includes counties, are higher than tax exempt rates because of that tax factor. We always talk about the value of tax exemption. Now, there is a really oddity in the sale because on the taxable deal, the best rate was from UMB, and they bid 1.26%, which is the exact same rate as on the tax exempt. There's probably 2 reasons for that. One is, with the rate so low, the margin between tax exempt and taxable is squeezed. And the second is, this transaction is repaid in 12 years, and the tax exempt was in 20 years. And usually the longer the transaction, the higher the interest rate. So, we can't say that there's no value to tax exemption here, but it's not, there's not a huge value in this very low interest rate market. So that was the first thing. You had 12 bidders, and that's another common. In the previous issue, we had 7. There was a whole bunch of bond volume, people selling bonds in the muni market. And I think they're attracted to quality. And so having a AAA GO, is a big sign in front of the investor community and the underwriting community. And so that attracts a lot of attention. So, I can't say how many bidders you would have had the upgrading not occurred. But the fact that you do have a AAA, sorts of rises you perspectives of everybody in terms of wanting to get this sort of credit quality as an interest rate. So this is a reflection of the number of bidders, the low rates of triple. Sarah had said, so what does this mean in money, the AAA versus the other AA one? And, at best it's a guesstimate, and with rates collapse so low, that difference isn't as big as it would be in a more normal market. But I don't know, a more normal market probably was in 2015 because it's been so low since then. But anyway, for both of these transactions together, we did, a general estimate, and the AAA in terms of interest cost combined for both the 20A and 20B is somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000 in the total interest cost. So that's a decent size difference in terms of money for these sort of sizes of borrowings. So I think that's what I would have to say. I'd be glad to take, the savings, that's sort of important. So, so, excuse me, we did the, the 2020B is for interest cost savings. And the interest rate we received here, the 1.26, I think we had something from October of, with a little, so the savings in this future value over time is $1,421,000 net of all costs. So, interest costs went down over this time frame by, a fair amount. That's $1.4 million. That's very good, over 12 years. So it's a little more than $100,000 a year of savings in each of the years now through 2024 through 2033. So approximately 140,000 a year, something like that. So again, the AAA helped that level of savings and reduced your interest cost, and savings went a lot higher than expected, both because of the upgrade and the market moving down. So that's all part of that. This is a bunch of good news. And so that's.
Dave,
Go ahead, Sarah.
I would point out, because there were some questions at our last work session or conversations about the issuance, about what we estimated the 2020A bonds related to the new, related to the behavioral health campus. And now based off that, our estimate is right around $500,000 a year.
Right. Annual debt service, 500,000. Yes.
Which is substantially, that's really great, because that's substantially less than what we were budgeting for that annual service amount. And so that'll free us up in that mental health sales tax fund to be able to apply that additional funding towards services and operations, which is what we want to be able to do. So I think that's also a great news story here in terms of what we've learned here today. And then I do think this chart really, David, tell me if I've got the wrong chart.
No, that's fine.
On the B, I think this does a pretty good job of illustrating each year, starting, what the savings is going to be off the 2020B refunding bonds. So you can see what we're going to save each year over what we would have been spending.
Right.
And it makes a pretty substantial argument as to what the value was in going through this process. And I don't know if I have anything else really to present, and just I think we all stand for Commissioner question.
I don't really have any questions. I think you've outlined it really well. I will say that, Dave, you and I work in different roles. If you think $1.4 million is a nice piece of change, I think that's considerable and really great to see. And I think to Sarah, I just would reiterate Sarah's point about, when we talked about this a little bit last week, when we constructed the budget for the behavioral health campus, we had some concerns about it, and this helps start to address that concern. If I understand you correctly, as it may not be as tight. I'm not saying we still don't have tough decisions to make, but it may not be as tight as we had initially anticipated in early projections.
One other thing I wanted to note out quickly, there might be, if folks are comparing what we showed when we announced the sale, we did have some premiums that came in, which adjusted the actual debt service amount. And I'm going to try to explain a premium in layman's language, and then Dave's going to just shake his head at me because we've known each other a long time. And so in my view, what a premium is it means that the person who's taking on the debt gives us basically an amount that offsets how much we have to issue debt for. So it's almost like a upfront payment to take the debt. Is that a decent way to describe a premium, Dave?
Well, it's most of the way there, but just between Sarah and I, it's the exact same way Doug Robinson, the ex-Johnson County CFO, described it to the city of Lenexa, where he's the CFO now. And the little piece of that, which certainly begs the question, is why would anybody give you more money than you're giving them? And the reason for that is that the investors also believe it's a very low interest rate market, and they're concerned about the value of their investment. So they usually ask for an interest rate that is higher than the current market. So you're paying out that interest rate, but in exchange for that, you get cash up front, which was what Sarah was talking about. And therefore, in the refunding case, we were able to issue less debt to do the job than we originally thought, because of the amount of that premium. And on the behavioral health, we had a little bit more proceeds to help the construction side of it. So that's how it was used. So if the market is 1%, they want 2%, and that difference they give you upfront dollar amount for that difference over the market. That's how we use it.
You guys just keep piling on the good news. That's awesome.
Well, finance isn't as dismal as people think sometimes. So.
Well, and I really appreciate the commissioner's patience with us and our really just sort of nerding out over this really unique stuff that most folks don't understand. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Baker Tilly team and the Gilmore and Bell team for all their hard work on this process. There have been today was a busy day with a lot of emails and updated documents moving back and forth. So I really appreciate all their work on this process. Plus our Douglas County team, Cammie Owens has been a part of this process, as well as, Robin has been helping assist with all the paperwork. So I would be really, it definitely takes a group effort to make this come together. And commissioners, you do have very long motions to read here. I will stop sharing. As we gave Garth with Gilmore and Bell a hard time when we were doing this, that bond attorneys are paid by the word. So we do need you to read the motion as outlined in the packet.
Commissioners, any other questions, or would any of us want to make a motion? I've got it pulled up here if you want me to read it, or any of you care to read it.
I don't public comment. I know I don't have anyone here.
Shoot, yes, thank you. Appreciate it, Sarah. Is there any public comment on, let's do item 2.2 first, which is the 2020A bonds first. Is there anyone online? There's no one there at the courthouse, Sarah. Not seeing anyone online. Okay, we'll close that. I'll go ahead and do the first one if that's okay, commissioners.
You're going to do the short one.
We can flip a coin over it. Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to approve Resolution 2035 authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of general obligation sales tax improvement bonds series 2020-A of Douglas County, Kansas, making certain covenants and agreement to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and action connected therewith.
Second.
Moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, passes 3-0.
I will read the second one if
All right.
nobody else wants to.
Go for it.
Knock
Okay.
yourself out.
And bring this up on my bigger screen so that I could read it. So I'm going to look away. Move to approve Resolution 20-36, authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of taxable general obligation sales tax refunding bonds, Series 2020-B of Douglas County, Kansas, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said bonds as they become due, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Passes 3-0.
Thank you,
Dave,
Dave, Ben,
Garth.
Garth.
Thank you. Good, excellent results. Thank you. Sarah, congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item 2.4, which is a resolution HR to establish a stormwater management standards for the unincorporated areas of the Maple Grove watershed. For those listening online, we had a work session on this maybe 3 weeks back. Does that sound about right? Maybe 3 or 4 weeks back on this. And Chad said he was coming to have us take a look at this and possibly approve this evening. Chad?
Okay, we got it. Good evening, commissioners. So you have a resolution before you tonight that would add a section to the county code, chapter 9, which is our public works chapter. And it would establish stormwater standards for Maple Grove watershed, as we've discussed previously. Maple Grove is basically areas north of North Lawrence in unincorporated Grant Township. And in previous meetings, we talked about the flooding concerns that we have in North Lawrence and in those low-lying areas. And this was all initiated by the review of a commercial site plan. And during that review, we worked with the applicant to apply some stormwater management standards to the site that we're hoping are going to be effective in addressing those concerns of additional runoff. And we're here tonight because at the time we thought it would make sense to make those a standard that we could apply to other developments should they come before you in the future. We met a few weeks ago and I gave a kind of technical brief on what these standards would do and ran through them quickly. And I think at the time you raised some valid concerns that by putting a standard out there that we're essentially saying this is how you develop in the watershed, which is not what this is about. What this is about is if someone is in a position where they are able to develop even with the Northeast Sector Plan, identifying the areas as agricultural and then staying agricultural. But if they're in a position where they are able to develop for other reasons, then this would be the engineering tool we could use to try and mitigate the impacts of that development. And so in the resolution before you, we have a statement in the actual body of the resolution. It's number 2 in the resolution that is a statement of intent that the commissioners do intend to follow a Northeast Sector Plan and that the areas should be preserved for agricultural use and open space. And then after that, we move on to if a development does occur, then here is an engineering standard that must be met for stormwater management. Hopefully, you know, the code won't have that statement in there, but the fact that it would be part of the resolution would make it very easy to explain to developers, and this would be published this way. So it's a statement that may help with that discussion later. So I've covered the details in the past. They're fairly technical. The body of the resolution has the standards listed, and they're the same standards that we've gone through a couple of times now. And so with that, I think I would take questions and see if you have any other concerns.
Questions for Chad?
I do have I guess a question for future reference. Now that we'll have the project that was okayed a while back, I drove by today and the land has been cleared and the kind of earthwork has started, and it made me think, do you expect, I guess I would ask you, since we're working with new guidelines now on in this area to try where there will be development to try and make sure it's conscientious about the flooding aspects out there. I guess I would ask that when there are serious rain events, that you come out and keep an eye on that and kind of see how these guidelines are working in real time. It seems like it would be a good idea to check these out as we watch that project actually perform during big storm events and kind of flooding events. So I might call you from time to time and ask you to go out and eyeball things just to see how these guidelines are working.
Good. I'll be curious too to see, and if we
Yeah.
do get that, when we do get that rain event, I'll definitely be out there to see how it's working. And
Right.
the interesting thing about these standards is that we're capturing every storm event. So you'll be able to see fairly soon next year or after it's complete, you know, that it's capturing rainstorms and not letting them leave the site, which will be an interesting thing to watch. So, but
Yeah.
yes, definitely we'll follow up, and I'm sure there are some neighborhood folks who will help me follow up.
No doubt, no doubt. I do want to thank you though, Chad. It's tough. It's a tough area to engineer around, and you've worked really hard on this and listened to a lot of people. I know you got an email from the trustee out at Grant Township asking about the change in the dam level and the river level and all of that, and whether any of those numbers, any of the change in the Kansas River level was a part of your calculations for this. Is that relevant?
It's really not. The Kansas
Okay.
River is a managed, it's almost, you know, an engineering machine the way they run it. So those levels jump up and down, and everything we're talking about is inside the levee. So separate system.
Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to thank you for your really paying attention to folks out in Grant Township and listening to their concerns and coming up with a really thoughtful guideline, and for that additional language to remind folks of what the Northeast Sector Plan means to help guide any impulses to develop. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chad, and this may be for Sarah, I don't know that I've ever read a resolution that essentially says something that we've adopted, we're confirming that we have adopted it. And just, I mean, I'm not against, I'm just trying to think of what might be an unintended consequence of passing a resolution that, you know, for example, if there was a project to come along that we just thought was so great or met that area's needs so much, does this tie the hands of any future commission on, you know, that they have to follow the Northeast Sector Plan? Am I making sense there?
Commissioner, I think you are, but I think there's kind of two pieces. One, I think, is sort of how does this sort of tie our hands, and I'd probably let Chad answer that piece. In terms of I think Chad and I talked about this, how this fits in the code is a little bit different. So, we normally adopt things by resolution, but, my understanding is this will probably need to live in the code in a section. And I think, Chad, we've talked a little bit through that in terms of what section and where we think it will be in terms of the code. But we don't do this too often where we update the code like this.
And this resolution does state that it'll be in section 9.112, and John Bullock reviewed this, and I don't know that I don't think he had any concerns with the format of this. The statement about the intent is, it's a should statement. It's not a must statement. And so it's just important that it's there, I think, for understanding intent, but it does not, it won't be binding within the code. So it's really an extension of the Northeast Sector Plan, I think.
Yeah, thanks I appreciate you drawing my attention to the should, and that could have been must. And I think that probably would have tied our hands, and maybe we want that, maybe we don't, but I think I feel comfortable with that. Yeah, thank you for that, for your work on that, and for listening to us and responding when we were concerned that this would become a new development tool that could be used. So appreciate that. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? All right, Sarah, is there anyone there at the courthouse who would like to provide public comment on this item?
We don't have anyone.
Is there anyone online who would like to provide public comment?
There's not anybody online.
Thank you, Daviana. With that, commissioners, would anyone like to make a motion or have more questions or comments? Chad, I guess I do have one more question. So like, what if we don't pass this tonight? What might be the repercussions of that?
Well, we forced a standard on a landowner after he was more than halfway through a review process. So it would be very easy to, continue taking that approach of, there's a statement in the zoning code that says that the drainage plan must be submitted for review and approval. And so we just never said what that was. And the point here is that in this watershed, we're saying, here is the plan. So if you don't pass it, we will continue to take the more, pragmatic approach of here's what you have to do. And I think the putting it in the standard in the code is good if you have a landowner who wants to fight that, we're being unreasonable, or, I think this gives it teeth so that, maybe you're preventing a confrontation later.
I think it also, the Caw Valley Drainage District, I think, has wanted this kind of more transparent or a more solid approach to development standards or stormwater standards out there. And that hasn't, there hasn't been kind of a formal response to their request for a long time. So I think this shows a great deal of respect for their work trying to do right by the drainage district. So in that way, I think it's a good move. I guess I would just hope, this is an aside, but I guess I would just hope that besides these guidelines, that any time there's a development impulse out there, that you all would reflect back on the North Lawrence drainage study from 2005 and look at the domino effect of development projects and the cost to the county, along with everything else. It's a complicated thousands of acres of land and complicated to manage and develop, and also incredibly valuable as soil and natural infrastructure. So I would just always hope that you'd reference back to the North Lawrence drainage study and that page of projects and costs.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Thelman. And Chad, I think I said it when you did our presentation, how much I appreciated the background that I don't think I had before, and I think will influence at least me for some time to come as we think about that area in North Lawrence. So if there's no other, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve resolution HR 2011-2, establishing stormwater management standards for unincorporated areas of the Maple Grove watershed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Passes 3-0. Thank you, Chad. Thanks for all your work on this.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to keep Chad around for a public works item on commencing the process to consider rescinding the minimum maintenance designation on East 650 Road from 1550 North to 1590 North in Kanawaka Township.
And Kevin Sontag is our county engineer, and he's the master of administrative duties on this topic. So I'm going to hand it off to him.
Welcome, Kevin.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Very good. Okay. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. Okay. Can you all see the map on your screen right now?
Yep.
Okay. Very good. So I'd like to start with some background for this agenda item. You're looking at E650 Road. This is west of Lawrence. It sits between County Route 442 and 1550 Road. It was originally opened in 1916 as a public full maintenance road and remained that way until 1992. At that time, the full half-mile stretch of this road was officially declared minimum maintenance by the Board of County Commissioners. 13 years later, in 2005, the northern 550 feet of this road was reverted back to full maintenance, with the remainder of the road, as shown in red on the map on your screen, still minimum maintenance. Now, since the minimum maintenance declaration in 1992, 3 residential entrances were mistakenly approved for this road. I say mistakenly because residences are required to take access from full maintenance roads. Access from minimum maintenance roads are not allowed for residences. Since these 3 houses have been built, the road has been maintained by Kanawaka Township so that residential traffic can travel on the road, but it technically remains a minimum maintenance road. We are now wanting to fix the situation by rescinding the minimum maintenance designation and making this a full maintenance road once again. A hearing regarding this road was held at the Kanawaka Township monthly meeting on October 13th, and the Township Board of Highway Commissioners made their opinion known that they feel the minimum maintenance designation should be rescinded. Their certificate of opinion was given to the Board of County Commissioners at your November 4th meeting, where the commissioners by consent directed Public Works to proceed with preliminary work towards rescinding the designation. That preliminary work is now complete and has resulted in the resolution presented to the board tonight. If approved, this resolution officially commences the public process to rescind the minimum maintenance designation on this road. And it asks the Lawrence Douglas County Planning Commission for their opinion on the matter. Looking towards the future, once the Planning Commission holds their hearing and makes their opinion, this issue will come back to the Board of County Commissioners, where we will hold a public hearing, take any public comment, and then decide whether the minimum maintenance designation should officially be rescinded. In the meantime, we ask the commissioners to approve tonight's resolution, and we can continue to move forward with this process. So at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions, commissioners? Doesn't look like there are. I don't have any. We'll open it up to the public to see if the public has any comment on this item. Sarah, no one?
I don't have anyone at the courthouse.
Anyone online?
There is no one online.
Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the group for motions, comments.
I would, yeah, if there aren't any questions, I'd like to make the motion, but I'm having technical difficulties. Give me just a second here. So the motion just needs to be approved to approve the attached resolution. Is that correct? Okay, so I move to approve the resolution to consider to rescind the minimum maintenance designation on East 650 Road from 1550 north to 1590 north in Kanawha Township.
Second.
I think I got a motion in a second, kind of froze there for me a minute. Kevin and Chad, do you have what you need there? Yep, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 3-0. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
Okay, that ends the regular agenda items. We'll move to appointments. I do have a recommendation for appointment to our Community Corrections Board. Quentin Riles is the one of the assistant principals at Lawrence High School. I would highly recommend we have someone in this role who has a working knowledge of working with youth that may encounter our correction system, and Quentin does have that. Quentin also identifies from a historically marginalized population, and when we talk about our criminal justice system, we all know the challenges that we experience with systemic racism and that. So I thought it was really great that Quentin was interested in that. I had a great discussion with him about his interest and sent him the information, and he's agreed to take on that role if appointed. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them. Otherwise, I would recommend we appoint Quentin Riles to the community. I want to get the name right here. Gotta look it up. To the Lawrence, to the community corrections. That's what we've got on the title there. Yeah, I know it's longer than that, but
Is that your, I'll second whatever that was.
yeah, that sounds like a terrible motion. Let me do that. Let me do that again. Well, we've seconded it there. Let me amend my motion to appoint Quentin Riles to the Community Corrections Board.
Second.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All those in favor say aye.
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 That's great. That's a great appointment. Thank you for.
Yeah. Quentin will do a great job.
Commissioner Kelly, can you just make sure you send us his contact information and Robin will get him all hooked up?
I will do. Any other appointments?
The Food Policy Council is I think close to bringing a name forward. There's an ag producer in Southern Douglas County who's willing to serve. She's attended one meeting, and so I'm very hopeful that at our next meeting that we'll finally fill one of those seats for an ag producer. And it's a good one, a commodity farmer who also has vegetable production and ranching, and so kind of a all-purpose farmer for that board. So hoping our next meeting will do that.
Okay, if we don't have any other appointments, we'll turn it over to miscellaneous items for commissioners and administration, and we'll start with Sarah.
Thank you, commissioners. In your packet online, you have a kind of a hefty packet. We've included a lot of things. It was probably because we didn't meet so much last week. There's an update from Jasmine Moore about some of the work that the Sustainability Office has been doing. So I encourage commissioners to take a look at that. There's a large packet on the public hearing related to the IRB for the Heartland Community Health Clinic, and that we're just made aware of those items. We don't officially vote on them. And then before I talk about the CARES Act funding update, I did want to say that we added included in the information, and we're pushing it out through our communication channels, information about the COVID asymptomatic. So no symptoms mass testing that's going to begin here November 21st. So please, if you have ways to share that information, we'd really appreciate it. Just as a reminder, commissioners, we do not meet next week in advance of the Thanksgiving holiday. And then you have the work sessions planned in that packet. I would point commissioners to the CARES update memo. It's kind of buried about page 71 or so in your packet. And what I wanted to do here was give you an update as to what had been spent down. And this is really just a preview for what I think we will bring back to you at your next business meeting on December 2nd to have some additional discussion on. As we've talked about, I think Brooke has put together a tremendous amount of detail here on how much has been distributed to all of our partners during the CARES Act. And as you can tell, there's quite a bit here that has not yet been, drawn down. Brooke is working closely with all of these, pages and pages of partners to get a determination as to how they're progressing and where we think we will be. What I would like to do before that next meeting is bring you some estimates in terms of what we think will not be spent or reallocated internally into those projects, and how we as a body can reallocate those funds and get them spent before the end of the year. At the back of that memo, you'll see an update on the assisted living residential healthcare facilities program fund allocation that was included in Douglas County's allocation. So I just wanted to point out that update. And then that contingency planning in terms of where these funds might be allocated. What Brooks included in here is just a very bare bones beginning. So please don't, and I would just encourage you and anybody who's going to read the packet, this was from a staff perspective, some of those initial thoughts of ways that it could be spent. I know that we have had outreach from tenants to homeowners and Family Promise, who the housing stabilization funds that they have used are coming to an end here, and it's November. So if there are some way, so we will work to pull that together. Plus, I know the Lawrence Restaurant Association has indicated that if there were additional funds that they would be interested in applying for more. So I think we will spend time here the next week or two kind of pulling together some of those options and bringing it to the commissioners in early December. And with that, I stand for any questions the commission has on the CARES Act update or other parts of the memo.
Sarah, I'm glad to hear you think we're going to get some changes in the CARES Act update, because it's concerning when you read that list. And do we have any flexibility with those? I mean, that's a significant number that has yet to be spent down. And I'm sure that's not where it is right now. I'm sure that's changed a lot, but I've also heard needs across the community. I've heard we're running out of dollars for rental assistance and things like that. Can we move things around, or are we set with what we decided?
We can move things around. But what I'm trying to get, I think what Brooke's working really hard right now is to try to get some sort of indication. I know when I look at this list that some of these projects are underway. So these projects, they just haven't had time to submit their spending models yet. I mean, a lot of the projects with the city of Lawrence, the public health improvements, they're proceeding on those. So what I want to try to do is give you an estimate. What do we think will not be spent and in time for this to all come through? So, but we have been told from the state that we do have some flexibility in terms of how, if we could reallocate funds within our program and to other uses. We do not have any flexibility on the date. So I think that is the part that is really difficult for all of us. And one of the items that I think we will talk about again on December 2nd is, this is $25 million in our community that will go away 12/31/20. we have funded a lot of ongoing operations and ongoing needs that will not go away on 12/31/20. So I think it's important for us to set expectations as to why this is so important to get spent right now, because we will not have these funds in the new year unless something changes at the federal level. These funds will be gone. So I think there's no expectation that we'll get more. In terms of what we're spending on housing stabilization and different, outreach to vulnerable members of our community, I'm also worried about that aspect of it. But so this is a little bit of a preview, so you can have some advanced information as to where we're at, and then we'll bring you something more substantial back for December 2nd.
I would just say that December 2nd meeting, I would think some decisions will have to be made, because there won't be time to think about it anymore.
Right.
If there are going to be reallocations, those organizations have to turn around and spend those dollars. So do we have, that's beginning to sound like a really full agenda.
I don't know if I have
That well, I mean, which is fine. I think I think that's where we're going to talk about Trinity as well. And so anyway, just be a big night.
Yeah. It's hard when we skip meetings, but so what I would say is that if I can get you any of that information earlier than before that Friday, I will do so. I would also say that, I think in terms of our recommendations to you as to how these funds get spent, groups that have mechanisms to make this happen, I think are going to rate higher on our list. And that's where we've seen things like the model that Tenants to Homeowners has. They already have it in place, so they could easily forward those funds into the community. The same goes for education. There was a stipend amount set at the state level that could easily go for certain items too. So it'll be harder to say, let's take something brand new that we've never even really thought of. However, I know that Unified Command has stood up a community well-being branch. And, they're working on some projects and think that there's some potential to get stuff spent. So we're going to be working over the next couple of weeks to try to bring that to you. But I will place an emphasis on items that are going to be easy to get out. And
that's good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sarah, I was just going to add to, Brooke joined me this morning on the Emergency Services Council monthly call. We have that work group meets, and Tenants to Homeowners and Family Promise and Catholic Charities, basically anybody that's doing emergency assistance, rent, utility. We meet on a monthly basis, and we brought this up today that we are gonna have funds left over, and they're gonna have to be spent very quickly. And so we've got Dana Ortiz and Rebecca Buford working to give us a realistic number that you can spend based on what your spend rate has been to date. Because yes, any applications that were received after the 14th of this month are probably not going to get approved. And they've been putting that expectation out there. But one modification that they may propose is, it's not just the families that they're serving. It's not just rent, it's medical bills. It's things that are also related to housing stabilization. And so that request may be modified slightly, but to still reflect some sort of a response to an economic impact due to COVID. Brooke was on the call, and I know she's on tonight listening, but she really gave some great advice to those agencies that, again, are on the front lines of serving some of our most vulnerable clients. So I think we got a nice head start, at least with that group this morning.
Thanks, Jill. I appreciate that and all your work with those groups. Thank you. Sarah did mention the asymptomatic testing, and you may have done this. I was looking it up. we probably should let the public know that Lawrence and Baldwin City are completely full. They are completely booked. So before they start calling the health department trying to book those, they might want to know that that testing is full. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't take just a minute and implore everyone to follow the guidelines of our health department. You know, we really put a lot of trust and faith in our health department, and they're doing a great job. But I think as electeds, we need to implore people to wear your mask, to stay 6 feet apart, to not gather, to follow the guidance that consistently comes forward. My understanding is that Governor Kelly had some new guidance today that came out from the State House, and I think just as a governing body, we need to implore upon our community to follow this guidance and get these numbers down. And I think Commissioner Thelman was at the COVID-19 town hall meeting, and Commissioner Druso, you might have been there as well. And
Yes.
Some of the models are very scary, and I think we need to respond to that fear by being responsible in our behaviors. And that's going to be hard for all of us to let go of some things we hold very dear. But this is the time to come to grips with that and do what we need to do to protect ourselves, but just as importantly, our neighbors as well.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Kelly, and you're absolutely right. Unified Command, as you know, we adjusted public health orders last week. I don't think we're done adjusting public health orders as we try to respond to this crisis. And you know, I think it's important for the community to understand that what we did anticipate, that this second wave would be coming and that it would be dramatic, and its impact on our hospital system, particularly for a community with one hospital, is just so vitally important that we pay attention to this information. We have contingencies in place, but they're not, you know, we have a plan, but they're not great plans, and it will impact the health of our community. And it will be, we've already stretched our healthcare system to the limits here during this time of year that we have, you know, increased hospital stays related to pneumonia and flu. And so I think we're, you know, you're right. Those forecasts that Dr. Scrimsher shared last night should be very sobering to folks. And I know it was to me and my family as we look to plan for Thanksgiving holidays. And I would, you know, I would point out too, on our website and on the public health website, we added a pie graph that outlined where current outbreaks and what the percentage is happening as to where this is happening. And I think oftentimes we want to point to one thing, like it's, you know, it's sport, you know, it's sports or it's schools or it's KU, and I think what that really indicates is that it's not. And that social gatherings, you know, largely some cases happened after Halloween, led to that impact, and we will likely see it again after Thanksgiving. So thank you for your words, Commissioner, and I appreciate that.
Well, Sarah, I appreciate you and your whole team, the work that you've been doing. You know, we haven't talked about this probably enough here in our meetings, but we knew this was coming, and now we're dealing with it. And I know your team's working really hard. I heard somebody say Robert Bernecki's probably hosted, what did they say last night? Hundreds of calls, thousands of calls, you know, setting up thousands of meetings. So I know it stretched our team very thin in ways we didn't expect, and just really grateful for your whole team's work on this. But we're not out of the woods yet, folks, and we want to pat ourselves on the back and congratulate ourselves as a community, but that it's not time to do that yet. We've got a lot of work to do.
And commissioners, early in this pandemic, I would give you updates in your weekly memo as to what was happening at Unified Command. And I have been let some of that slip as we've gone on to other issues. So I think as we get ready for the meeting on the 2nd, you know, I'll make sure that we have some updates for the commission that we can pass along to the public as to how we're all doing our best as a community to come together and respond to this pandemic.
Thank you. Well, we got to celebrate a little bit of good news tonight, and unfortunately we're ending it sort of on a down note, but I want to wish everybody a happy holiday coming up. We'll take that meeting off. And anything else, commissioners?
Now, congratulations again, Sarah and staff for the great work on our rating and all the exciting, the domino effect from that. So that's greatly appreciated, and our taxpayers, I hope, will understand and appreciate what that means to them. So yeah, thank you. And I guess we'll see everybody on Friday
Yeah.
for another celebration.
Yes, Carrie.
Yes, Carrie.
That got left off of our weekly memo, but yes, Friday is the ribbon cutting for transitions. And so thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner. I apologize for getting that missed on the memo, but we'll look forward to seeing everyone Friday. Looks like the weather should be good.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.
Thank you.